Hey, thanks for downloading the show. This is GardenFork Radio. It's an eclectic mix of cooking, gardening, stuff I do in the yard, stuff I do inside, workshop, and it's freezing cold outside, so we're doing a podcast inside today. My name is Eric. I'm your host. If this is your first time, appreciate you taking the time to check us out. I have a cold today, and I thought, well, that's no reason not to do a podcast, so here we are. I don't have any guests today because, as you all know, I am a marvel at scheduling and planning ahead. There are some people that are going to be on the show soon, and right now I have a cough drop in my mouth because I'm trying not to cough while I record the show. So if you hear some cough drop clinking around, that's just the cough drop clinking around. If your headphones on, sorry about that. A couple things we wanted to talk about. We got some viewer mail, a couple of comments, all good comments, and my kind of obsession with true crime podcasts. So here we go. You're going to hear this creaky noise in a minute, and that is the baseboard heat along the wall. And I still have to fix it, but the baseboard heat is copper pipe with aluminum fins, and it goes through a piece of wood trim in the middle of the wall. It's a little hard to explain, but the hole isn't big enough for the pipe, so when the pipe expands from the heat of the hot water coming through it, it makes this creaky noise. And for people who have been in my house for the first time, they're like, what is that noise? And they think it's well, I just think it might be something, and it's not. So, anyway, there you go. I have been listening to some true crime podcasts, and not the ones, there's a bunch of them out there. I like the ones that do kind of a deep down dig. I got started with Serial, the first season of Serial, and then I just kind of went from there. And the one I've been listening to, buzzing thing, sorry. The one that I've been listening to lately, because I kind of binge listen on everything else, is called Up and Vanished. A gentleman named Peyton, who is a documentary filmmaker, has been producing it. And it's quite good. It's his first time out doing a podcast. He is a documentary filmmaker by training. And I talked about it a little bit on our last show. And they've had some very interesting developments, I guess you call them. I don't want to spoil them for you. So if you want to check that out, it's called Up and Vanished. Another one I actually have completed listening to is Someone Knows Something, which is by the Canadian Broadcast Company. And the guy that does that, whose name I'm blanking on right now, does a really good job. I kind of like it's... is that called cinema noir? It's like, it's not really reality show. They're not trying to pit people against each other, but they're driving around their car with a really good microphone. It doesn't sound like you're trying to record this on your iPhone or something, but you can record really good stuff with your iPhone. They have these decent, really nice plug-in mics you can get for like $30, and you can record really good interviews that way. Anyway, some of the other true crime podcasts kind of revisit old crimes that were never solved, but they only talk about it for like 20 minutes, and it's just kind of like retelling of the news rather than let's go see what's going on here. I think there's a lot of crime and murders that happen that don't get solved. One, because the police, if it happens in a smaller district, small towns, small counties, they just don't have the infrastructure and budget to do an in-depth investigation of things like that. And that's no slam against the police at all. I'm a big supporter of the police departments. But they've got their day-to-day already, and then all of a sudden a murder or a serial killing or something happens, and they're like... So what I liked about the podcast, and I think some of the police departments are also like this, is that these citizen journalists, well, some of them are journalists and some are citizen journalists doing this, do a deep dive, and they bring up stuff that the police maybe had not heard about, but also just the nature of the podcast. It starts to travel through people's social media circles in that town. It'll pop up on Facebook, whatever, and it jogs people's memories, or it might make someone rethink, when my buddy said that thing 10 years ago, I didn't know what he meant, but maybe it's relevant to this crime that occurred. And they'll come forward and either talk to the podcaster or the police or both. And that part of it, I think, is pretty neat. So, does it sound too weird because I have a cold? I'm just always wondering. radio@gardenfork.tv. Anyway, up and vanished. Someone knows something. And if you just let me type for a minute, I'll look up the other one here. They're all on iTunes. I guess I should say it's a podcast. Yeah, would that help? Sometimes iTunes isn't the greatest thing, Why is it? It's not showing me what I want. I'm sorry here. So, let's just skip that, okay? I wanted to thank Casey, who is our camera expert. Last week I bought a used video camera to upgrade the one that I have, which is quite old. It's so old that it still shoots interlaced video. That's how old it is for you geeks. And I was thinking about getting a 4K camera. I opted to get a 1080p camera, but I got a Canon G30, which is quite expensive, but you can buy them less expensively, about half the price, on eBay, and they're used. But I found on eBay that when I buy cameras, I have yet to have a bad experience with that. I always check the people's feedback from previous sales. The people that are listing them are pretty darn honest. One guy was like, I used this for 2 years to video my son's football games, and now he's off to college, so I don't need this camera anymore, and so he's selling it on eBay and has a bunch of pictures on it. The other guy was a wedding photographer, and he goes, I use this to shoot some video along with the photography, but I've upgraded to a bigger video camera, and I'm selling this now. And so it's that kind of thing. It hasn't been dinged around. I mean, I beat mine up. I left my video camera out in the snow last night. I was like, where's my camera? And then I saw it sitting on a bench that and it wasn't completely buried in snow, but it was in snow. So, all right, my computer's back, so let me look up the someone knows something. How's that? How someone knows something. And if the computer works, here we go. That is the podcast. It's from the CBC Radio, Someone Knows Something. And then there's one called In the Dark by APM, which is American Public Media. And I thought that one was very good. And there's a bunch more, but a lot of them just kind of like, again, they talk about like a Jack the Ripper or something. I'm like, yeah, we already know that one. So that was pretty good. Anyway, back to what I was talking about. So thank you, Kevin, for the camera advice on that, and we'll be shooting with the new camera. And I also got an inexpensive shotgun microphone on Amazon that I read about that is kind of a clone of about a $120 microphone. The really good one's called a Rode, R-O-D-E. And maybe you've seen it slid on the top of people's DSLRs. So I'm curious to see what that one's about. All right. I lost one of my beehives last week. I will be posting a video about it today. And I don't know why. I keep thinking I did everything I could to prep them in the fall to get them through winter. And I've been espousing them to be beekeeping friends, all the stuff I do, and why your bees died because you didn't do what I do. And then, it all comes back to you. And this was the strongest hive I had. It was a swarm that I caught in Connecticut, and I brought it down to the Brooklyn rooftop. And over the winter, on warm days, they were out flying around. I have video of it. It's actually in some of our other beekeeping videos of the rooftop hives. When I would pop the top on that one, not a lot of bees would come to the top of the hive where the dry sugar was, and I'm like, oh, they're just feasting on all the sugar syrup and honey that I left them, because I didn't harvest any honey last year because of the drought. There wasn't really much of a nectar flow. And then last week there was a warm day. It was 60 degrees, so it's a perfect day to open. We're not taking apart the frames. We're just opening the top to check the sugar reserves and see if there's any activity. And there was no activity on that one. And on the hive I had all the problems with. I replaced the queen twice. That one was booming. So we will see. The Connecticut hives I haven't had a chance to look at because it's been quite cold. But they're wrapped in insulation. They were treated for mites. I don't know what to think about that. So if your bees have crashed, I'd be interested to hear. I guess we'll do a post-mortem, and we'll videotape that. If there's a warm day coming up, we will take apart the dead hive and show you. I think the only thing that I could think of is a mite overload, and I treated for varroa mites in the fall, but it doesn't take care of all the mites. And if they had maybe some dysentery, they get this intestinal ailment, which is like dysentery. So that with the mite load, maybe that did him in. I'm not sure. Hey, want to talk about cheese? I got an email from Dale, and he says, how about a video on making cheese? I live in a town in Ohio, and some of the things in your video really wouldn't work here too well. The city would find me over and over. I've been learning to want to make cheese for some time. Just a thought. Thanks for your time, and keep making videos. Yeah, we actually have a video on making a fresh cheese. It might be in Spanish it's called queso, or at least in my neighborhood it's called queso. It is a simple cheese using whole milk and either lemon juice or vinegar or citric acid. And I think citric acid is vitamin C also. I could be wrong about that. Someone will tell me, right? radio@gardenfork.tv. And it coagulates the solids in the milk, and you squeeze it out through some cheesecloth. You add a little salt, and you've got a fresh cheese. It tastes pretty good. You can also then take that cheese and dry it out, form it into a wheel, and store it, and it would become a dry cheese. So, yeah, it's on the to-do list, making cheese. I think mushroom spore in logs will happen first, but just thinking about that. But always appreciate the mail. It's radio@gardenfork.tv. What's been going on the last couple of weeks, actually I have this cold because I've been boiling sap, and last weekend it was 7 degrees outside, and this morning when I got up it was -7 with the wind chill. And last weekend I still stood outside and boiled sap, and I thought, this is why people have sap houses, because it's much warmer inside, for a couple of reasons. Because my sap storage tanks were frozen solid last weekend. Yesterday was above freezing, so I boiled sap. But even then, my supply line from my big sap tank, which is up the hill by the garage, it kept on freezing, so I just gave up on that. And I put one of those beer brewing buckets with the little plastic valve at the bottom it's a 6-gallon bucket. I hung that up in the air off the side of my shed, and the evaporator is right next to the shed. And that trickled sap through a little heat exchanger I built that wraps around, it's copper coil wrapped around the smokestack, goes along the side of the evaporator tray, and then drops in the front with a little garden hose valve. And it does warm up the sap, but when it's this cold outside, I wonder if someone's pulling in my driveway. Well, the dogs will tell us, won't they? The sap freezes in the tubing before it gets near the chimney. It's that cold with the wind whipping. So I don't know. I might boil this afternoon. But I'm also trying to get over this cold. So what was very cool was I talked to my friend Bill, who we have a really great, I think it's my first maple syrup video, is visiting Bill's sugar shack at Maple Knoll Farm, and I'll link that in the show notes here. But I was at the general store for breakfast, and he came in, and we talked about how much I think I'm just blowing a lot of heat out my chimney when I'm boiling. And he talked about it's called an arch. It is angled. It is deeper at the front where the fire door is, and also that's where your sap is first introduced into the pan. And then it's much shallower at the back of the pan. So the bottom of essentially the firebox is at an angle and goes up. And then halfway up, he put a pile of sand across the bottom of the arch to create turbulence, basically, to where the heat goes up this hill of sand and then kind of roller coasters or starts to spin in like a cartwheel or a flywheel or a windmill and bounces around in the middle of the firebox and then exits. So more of the heat is distributed to the pan, your evaporator pan, rather than going up the chimney. And I read something about this on one of the maple syrup forums as well. I think mapletrader.com. That was the forum I was looking at. Really nice people there. Talking about putting in a baffle or two before the heat smoke hits your chimney stack. And the chimney stack is basically a square hole drilled in the top back of the firebox. But if you put 2 metal baffles in there, you'll slow the flow of air and allow some more of the heat to be transferred to the pan. So I thought that was really kind of very interesting there. So I'm hoping this afternoon it'll get to about 20 degrees. All of my sap buckets, the individual sap buckets, are frozen solid. I had the forethought yesterday to empty the bigger barrels. I pulled out some big pieces of ice. I just tossed them. And I brought in the sap buckets, and they're all sitting in my kitchen right now. So, and then I'll take them out and boil them later. But what you can do is while you have you have your sap, I use these plastic buckets, you can sit them on top of the evaporator, because the evaporator has 4 walls basically built into it. So there's enough structure there to kind of sit the bucket on top and keep it warm while you're ladling in. So I won't have my automatic feed system set up, but maybe we'll go out this afternoon and boil sap, because that's something to do. I don't know, maybe I'll have a better scarf on or something. All right, so just a quick one. I wanted to say hello, keep you guys up to date on my world. Let me know what your world is going on. It's radio@gardenfork.tv. So make it a great day. I'll see you.